Hi everyone, it's Paul from This Design That. Today we're going to be reviewing the xTool SafetyPro AP2 fume extractor. So let's start with the specs and features of the AP2. It is a fume extractor with 6 layers of filtration, one being a Cyclone Separator, and then the 5 filters, which include a pre-filter section, then a activated carbon and ultra dense carbon mesh, and then finally through a high efficiency filter. Its dimensions are 542mm in height, it is 491mm in depth, and the width is 290mm. It weighs just over 20 kilograms, so it is light enough to be able to lift up and put on a desk like what I've got here, but it is also on wheels, so it is quite easy to move around, especially when you've got it on the floor. It has touch controls at the top. You had the 4-speed fan selector, the auto on and off, and also the main power on and off. At present, only the S1, the F1 Ultra, the M1 Ultra, and the P2S are compatible with the Bluetooth dongle and the auto mode. It can just be used in manual mode, and obviously it's going to work with any machine because you just press the fan speed that you need. It's rated at 220 watt power, and this is pretty much what you'd expect power wise from a machine in this price range. Now let's talk about why a fume extractor is important, but before we do that, I just want to say thank you to the sponsor of this video, PCBWay. Now, did you know that you can cut steel with a laser? Well, by using PCBWay, you have access to that type of high-powered machinery. There's also a huge range of CNC machining services, 3D printing and injection molding services available. On top of all of that, they have a massive range of PCB services, ranging from PCB etching, PCB assembly, all the way to full turnkey and OEM solutions. Across most of their services, they offer low quantity order and very fast shipping. So head over to PCBWay.com today and see what they have on offer. So if you're doing laser engraving, there are 2 things that you can do with the fumes that are produced in the machine. Preferably you would do both of them, but sometimes you might only have the option to do one. So the first is just to exhaust it straight out of the machine and through the window out into the open. Now, if you don't have neighbors nearby, then you can probably get away with just doing this. But if you're like me, you just live on a normal street, I've got neighbors either side of me. In the summertime, when they've got the windows open, I don't really want a load of smoke kind of venting out into their house because it's just a little bit unfair. So the other option you've got is to exhaust it out of the machine and into some sort of fume extractor, which will clean the air before it is then exhausted out again. And from here, you can exhaust it out into your room if you trust the fume extractor to clean the air good enough, or you can vent it from the fume extractor outside. So I do both. I vent it from the machine into a fume extractor, and then I send it out exhausted through my AC Infinity inline fan out through my window. I think this is what most people do when they are using laser engravers, but you really need to consider this, and do not be fooled by the marketing videos that you see for pretty much every single brand of laser engraver out there. They will always show their laser engravers being used just in an open living room with people sitting around it without using any sort of PPE or having any sort of exhaust or fume extraction set up. Do not think that you can use a laser engraver in this way because it is really bad for your health. Engraving wood, plastics and paper, they all release particulates and VOCs, and these are very, very bad for your health. And I guess the best way to think about it is, imagine if there was a fire next to you and you chucked a load of wood, a load of paper and a load of plastic on it, and imagine all of this smoke was coming up out of the fire. Would you go and stick your head over it and start breathing it all in? No, you probably wouldn't, because it smells disgusting and you would probably soon be in a coughing fit. And that's just the same with a laser engraver, obviously on a little bit more of a smaller scale. But you'll be surprised when you first start using it, doing even a very small engraving or just like paper cutting, it produces a lot of smoke, and you really do not want to be breathing any of this in. Another reason why you might consider a fume extractor is that, and this is my personal experience, is that it makes the hobby more enjoyable. I don't know about you, but I don't really want my hobbies to be impacting on my health. I know this from when I started doing woodworking and CNC machining. I had a very cheap vacuum cleaner set up for my wood chips and all the dust that was created through my CNC. I soon realized that it was actually just being exhausted straight out of the vacuum cleaner without really any sort of filtering. And at the end of the day of being in there running a load of jobs and doing a load of woodworking, I'd always be coughing. So I knew I was breathing in something that wasn't too good for my throat or lungs. I bit the bullet and I invested in a very good dust extractor for woodworking. and it really does make the hobby more enjoyable. I can be down there all day working on my projects, and I'm happy knowing that, you know, I'm not breathing in a load of crap, basically. So it's the same for laser engraving. I would say it's even more important for laser engraving compared to something like woodworking, because you are burning things and you're working with various different materials, especially when you start getting into cutting, you know, plastics, special plastics, and plywood. You know, the wood that is used to bind the layers in plywood is really not good stuff to be breathing in. So let's go over the unboxing and first impressions. So packaging is very nice, as you would expect from an xTool product. It has lifting straps looped around the AP2, which is very welcome because, you know, it's 20 kilograms. Lifting it out of the box can be a little bit of a struggle, but with these lifting straps, you can get a nice good grip of it and lift it out quite easily. The AP2 has all of the filters pre-installed. All you need to do is unwrap each one from the plastic wrapping and then place them back in the same order. It's very hard to get confused with this because all of the filters are numbered and labeled. Aside from the filters and the extractor, you get an acrylic door which is held in with magnets. You also get a generous amount of ducting, which is approximately 3 meters when fully extended, and you get various different adapter rings so you can connect your hoses together with the fume extractor and the machine. There is also the Bluetooth dongle, which is what you will be plugging into your laser machine, and remember, only some of them are supported, but that will be plugged into your machine, and that is what communicates with the AP2. So my first impressions were great. I think it's clear that, you know, a lot has been done to try and protect this as much as possible in packaging. The acrylic door was actually wrapped in 2 layers of a protective sleeve on either side. So you can tell that they really don't want that being scratched or damaged. The coloured straps on the filter, they had a nice contrast to the overall minimal aesthetic of the extractor in general. I like the touch of showing the actual Cyclone. These holes here, they don't actually do anything. They are just purely for the visuals, so you can actually see inside and see the Cyclone feature. And it just makes it look quite nice and, I guess, futuristic. And I definitely say that this wins the award for the best looking fume extractor that I have seen. So let's talk about the highlight feature of this, which to me is probably the Cyclone Separator. I think this is the first time a Cyclone Separator has been included in a laser fume extractor. Now, Cyclone separators, it's not a new bit of technology. They've been used for many, many years in various different other industries. I even built one for my CNC machine a few years ago. But basically, a Cyclone separator will use centrifugal force and gravity to separate heavier particles from lighter particles. So the Cyclone basically helps to stop those heavy particles from just getting into those filters and clogging them up quickly, which means that you're going to get better efficiency and longer life from your filters. And as this was the first time that I've seen this specific type of Cyclone design with lots and lots of mini Cyclones, I thought we'd take it apart and just have a little bit of a closer look to see what exactly they've done inside here. So this is the top Cyclone compartment, and below it are all of the filters. You do need to take this apart every now and then to clean out these mini Cyclones, because obviously they will get full of larger particles. But this is kind of how I think it works. The air will be sucked in through here, and it will then make its way into these channels. All these little mini Cyclones you can see here, they all have these little holes. When this lid is placed on, the air will be sucked up and through all of these little holes here in the Cyclone, and then the smoke will come into these mini Cyclones. The heavy particles will drop down into the bottom of these Cyclones, and there is no, as you can see, these Cyclones, these are all covered. So it's not going to fall back into here. It's all going to be captured in these little Cyclones. So the heavy particles will be caught in the Cyclone, but then what happens is we have these Cyclone caps that go on top, and then there is a tiny bit of space that will allow the smoke to travel through here and then down this hole. And then that hole, if you look, that hole goes straight through. It will go into the rest of the filter stages. Only the very fine particles, the smoke and the fumes, will be able to travel through here, through the Cyclones, through this little raised channel and down this hole. That's how I think it works. But this tray is obviously made so that you can clean it. So you can easily unscrew this lid, take off these caps, and then you can clean the Cyclones, and obviously you can clean these parts as well. Now also, due to how this Cyclone filter is set up, you can see that there are just 2 little exit ports of that Cyclone filter. And I was worried that that was maybe going to cause hotspots on this pre-filter section. But I just tested it with just some black pigment dye. I just chucked a load in through the exhaust hose, sucked it in, and you can see that it's actually done a pretty good job of distributing that powder across that pre-filter. But you can actually see that a lot of the filter has that black pigment to it. So this pre-filter is actually getting used, quite effectively. I'd probably say about maybe 70 to 80% of the filter has actually been covered in this black pigment. And I think this is due to there is a little bit of a gap. You've probably got about 10-15 millimeters gap between the exit ports on this Cyclone filter and where it meets that pre-filter. So once you've got all the filters unwrapped, it's very easy to get this set up. All you need to do is plug in the power. You'll plug in the Bluetooth dongle into your laser engraver, and all you need to do is update xTool Creative Space. It automatically connected my S1 with the AP2 here. There was nothing to do in xTool Creative Space, which is really nice. And all you need to do is just plug in your exhaust into your laser engraver, and that is it. You're good to go. Let's go through the performance and testing. I tested the noise levels, the airspeed of the exhaust and inlet ports, and then finally, the most important of them all, the air quality. So let's run through these noise levels. With no tubes connected, bearing in mind you're probably never going to use it with no tubes connected because you do need to connect it to the laser, but level 1 fan speed is 66 decibel, level 2 is 69, level 3 is 70, and level 4 is 71. When you have the inlet port connected, and this is probably what most of you will be using it if you're not then venting it out of a window, the level 1 fan setting is 61, level 2 is 64 decibels, level 3 is 65, and level 4 is 66. So it does reduce when you've got some sort of venting connected to it. And then lastly, when you've got both ports connected, the noise is significantly reduced. So level 1 fan speed is 49 decibel, level 2 is 53, level 3 is 55, and level 4 is 56 decibel. So it makes a big difference to have both of the ports connected. This is how I would probably use it. And even at level 4, it is still quite enough that I could have this probably running all day and it really wouldn't bother me too much. Airspeed levels, the exhaust outlet, fan speed 1 is 9.6 meters per second. Fan speed 2 is 12.5. Fan speed 3 is 14.2. And fan speed 4 is 15.8 meters per second. And on the inlet port, the fan speed 1 was 6.1 meters per second, fan speed 2 was 7.9 meters per second, fan speed 3 was 8.9 meters per second, and fan speed 4 was 9.8 meters per second. So this is plenty enough airspeed to be exhausting the fumes out of all of the xTool machines. And I would say this is probably even usable for even bigger CO2 machines as well. Next, we'll test the efficiency of the cyclones. And I've just got some corn flour here just to kind of mimic some sort of kind of particles being sucked up. And as you can see, they are captured in this cyclone. It does do a very good job of capturing it, and all of those cyclones are filled up with tiny deposits of corn flour. Now, obviously, once these mini cyclones are filled, you can take out this cyclone filter. You can undo 6 screws, and then you can take this off and you can just wash it under warm water. So it's easy to wash and replace these cyclone filters. So it does actually work. It's not just a gimmick, which is nice to see. And then lastly, the air quality test. So I am running this through a Temp-Top. This is a air quality monitor. I'd say this is probably the premium end of kind of the consumer air quality monitors that you can get. What I do is I turn this on outside in my garden to get a base reading, and then I come and do my readings. So I've tested this with plywood, with basswood, with leather, and also with cast acrylic. The AF2 handled them all with ease, and actually the air that was already in my room is worse than the air that was coming out of this extractor. The readings actually dropped when I started to measure the air that was coming out of the extractor. So it does an incredible job at cleaning the air. You cannot smell anything. With other extractors that I've used in the past, you can smell a tiny little hint of, some sort of burning, but with this, yeah, it does a very, very good job at cleaning the air. And you can see just how bad this stuff is coming out of the laser. If I take out the exhaust hose and I just put it next to my air quality monitor, you can quickly see the ppms jump up to moderate levels. And I mean, this is just after a few minutes. So this should hopefully help to highlight, the importance of a fume extractor. So the filters are individually replaceable, and the prices range from $18 to $45. And obviously you can just replace any one that you need at a certain time time. You don't obviously need to replace all of them at the same time, which is obviously going to reduce the cost in your filter replacements. So let's go over the pros and the cons of this machine. Starting off with the pros, it definitely provides enough suction to exhaust fumes from your laser engraver while still operating at a comfortable noise level. I think if you've got a well-sealed machine, something like the S1, does have a good seal around it, you can run this fume extractor at setting 1 or 2 and you'll still get a decent extraction rate. So noise levels are very, very low when you've got both of those exhaust hoses plugged in. The next pro is that it really does do exceptional air cleaning. Like what it's advertised, I think it's like 99.99%, it really does seem to do a very, very good job at cleaning. And I would say that I actually feel comfortable with this fume extractor just being vented directly out back into my room. With previous ones that I've used that are only 2-stage or 3-stage, as I said, you do still get a little bit of a smell when you are running them. With this, I did not detect any sort of smell. You do need to make sure that your hoses and everything has a very, very good seal. I even went as far as running some silicone sealant around the inside of this S1 hose attachment just to make sure that it was completely sealed. Next is the automatic function, which has worked flawlessly. I've got it connected with this S1, haven't had a single issue when I'm starting and stopping a job, and it's just one less thing to worry about. I really like the idea of the modular filters. You'll see on a lot of other machines, usually you just have kind of like one big filter box that you just have to pull out and replace one at a time, and they can be quite costly. With this modular setup and obviously with the Cyclone feature, you're going to be able to spread the cost of the filters out over a greater amount of time, because some will obviously get filled up quicker than others, so you can replace the ones that are getting filled up quicker, so you can spread the cost of the filters out over a longer duration, which is nicer. I'm happy to see that the Cyclone isn't just a marketing gimmick, it really does actually work. It does a good job of capturing large particulates, and this is going to definitely help with increasing the efficiency of the extractor and also increase the lifespan of the filters. And if looks are important to you, I would say that this is a very nice addition to a workshop. It looks the part, it looks nice and futuristic, and I haven't seen anything quite like it. If you look on marketplaces for these type of fume extractors, you'll just see the same typical design that's just been rebadged by every other company. It's really nice to see xTool are trying to do something a little bit different, and they are kind of approaching it from an aesthetic point of view as well. They want stuff to look nice for their customers. Now, the last pro is that it is actually competitively priced. I was quite surprised by this because to me, xTool is kind of like the Apple of laser engraver brands. They are a premium price. I do think you get what you pay for in the user experience. If you look at the price of this at the moment, which is £699, and if you look at a lot of the other brands out there that are offering a 200 to 300 watt fume extractor, they will be mostly priced in the upper 400s to 600 range. But none of them offer a Cyclone, which is definitely a very good feature to have. And none of them are a 6-stage filter. A lot of them are just 2 to 3 stage filters. And as I said from my previous experience of using those type of fume extractors, usually you do get a little bit of a hint of a smell. With this, I didn't get any sort of hint of smell when I was doing the laser engraving. And I think you could probably, outgrow your xTool machine. You might, venture into higher power machines, into CO2 machines. But I think this is still powerful enough to be used in those type of machines. So it does give you a little bit of room for growth in terms of the type of machines that you can use this with. So I think that the added level of filtration, the unique Cyclone feature, and the fact obviously this works automatically with the xTool machines, I think that probably justifies the, probably about 100, 150 extra on top compared to most of the other filters in this kind of power range. Next, let's go over some of the cons. So I'd say, first of all, the acrylic door. It looks nice, but as you know from acrylic, it scratches so easily, and I can understand after testing it for a few weeks why they put those double layer protective films on it, because as soon as you put it down, it pretty much gets scratched. I would have preferred to have had a glass door. I think that probably would have been a better choice. Also, I would have preferred if the door was actually hinged to the fume extractor, so you could just open it and then get the filters out, because the reason why it gets scratched so much is that to access the filters, you just have to take off the door. And because it's just held in magnets, you put it down, like, I put it down on this aluminium table. If it's got a little bit of grit on it or anything like that, and you move it around, it's just gonna get scratched so quickly. So maybe a door would have been better. The other con that I didn't really like was that there are no tactile buttons on the top here. They are all just touch buttons. and it is very easy to accidentally turn it on and off. You can literally just wipe your finger over it and it will kind of activate something. So I think tactile buttons would have been better, especially if you've got it down underneath a desk and you just want to kind of reach down and you can just kind of like feel the buttons. I think I probably would have preferred that more tactile approach. And the last con is that there are no brakes on the wheels. So if, like me, you've got it up on your table here, I mean, this can easily, roll around. The wheels are quite recessed in the bottom of the base here. You can't really get your finger underneath it to, access a brake. And I did check and there are no brakes on the wheels. I mean, if you've got it on the floor, it's probably not going to be too much of an issue, but yeah, it would have been nice if wheels had brakes on them, I think. So hopefully you found that review useful. I think to conclude, the AP2 is pretty much the best in its category. I don't really think there's anything out there that can beat it in terms of its performance and its features. Stay tuned for the next video where we'll do a quick review of the new xTool inline fan, the IF2. Thanks for watching. That is all for today. I will catch you later.